Hey everybody, my name's Jason and this is the Freedom Adventure, where we continue on making a Class C motorhome out of an old retired ambulance. Do you have one of these? Well, I don't necessarily mean an English bulldog, but I just mean a dog in general. We have a couple of them, and if you're anything like us, you've got fur on the floor, something if not multiple items with teeth marks in them, and whether or not you think about it, you're about one vet visit away from financial ruin. But we love our pups anyway, right? I mean, they're part of the family, which is exactly why we chose to go with a Velit 2000U 24 volt underbench DC powered air conditioner unit. And we did that for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, when we go out and we do the things that we like to do when we go camping, let's just say it's hiking, we want the peace of mind to know that the dogs are going to be in good shape because they're going to have to stay in this thing while we're gone. We'd love to take them with us, but the fact of the matter is they're not sporting pups. They tend to turn their ears off and they don't listen. And trust me when I say, guys, that these aren't the kind of dogs that you want to carry for very far. Now, the second reason is just for the obvious. We want to be able to use the air conditioner without shore power while we're driving down the road, and that's going to enable us to do that with this setup. Also, if we choose to go stealth camping or boondocking, there you go. We have onboard power. We don't have to worry once again about shore power. So when I began researching Velit's unit that we installed here, I had a lot of questions about this, and unfortunately, there were some review videos out there, but none of them really answered the questions that I had. Of course the thing blows cold. When you stick your hand in front of the vents, yeah, it blows cold. But will it really be able to keep up with the Oklahoma heat? And guys, let me tell you, right now it's probably about 11 o'clock where I'm at here in Oklahoma. It's already about 86, 87 degrees, and it's doing nothing but getting hotter. So yeah, will it keep up? Second, what temperature can I really expect my camper to get down to? And when I'm saying that, I mean like during the heat of the day. So if it's 100 outside or if it's 95 outside, realistically, what temperature can we expect this thing to really operate at? Then on top of that, how long will it really take to get it to that temperature? Another thing to consider is what about the value of the purchase? Guys, we are not a big channel. We don't have people sending us products to review, and what that means is we bought this with our own hard-earned money. If it sucks, I'm going to tell you that. I'm going to be really disappointed if it does, because I will tell you this, and I'm not going to go off into the weeds as far as the pricing right now, but what I will tell you is there are other units out there substantially less costly than this one. Now, there are reasons that we went with this one, and the big one on this, the 2000U, is that it mounts inside the vehicle. At this point, all I really want to know is how well does it work? And today, guys, that's exactly what we're going to find out. But before we do, there's a couple of things I want you to know about our rig. One of those things is the insulation situation that we happen to have on board. Now, initially, when we did the tear out on this, it did have some insulation, but what the insulation really looked like was just kind of some fluffy yellow material. There wasn't a whole lot of it. It was not everywhere. It was just kind of in select locations, and it just didn't look very useful to me. So what we ended up doing is we put in 2 inches thick of 1-inch foam board. And so that means we've got on the ceiling and on the walls, we've got 2 inches thick of foam with a combined R value of 10. Now, as far as the floor goes, unfortunately, it's not 10. Matter of fact, it's barely registering. So the box itself is constructed out of plate aluminum, and that goes for the floor as well. On top of that plate aluminum, there's a 3/4 inch layer of plywood. Then on top of that, there is about a 1/2 inch layer of laminate floor, and it's got the foam pad on the bottom of that. So just go ahead and hit in Google and look at what the R value of plywood and the rough R value of the floor that we used. We're probably talking about 1.5. I know that's not great, but we had to make sacrifices because I'm 6'2". And in this particular vehicle, you can see I've got some headroom above me, and that's what I needed. We tried using at least one layer of 1-inch thick foam board on the floor, and I think it probably would have helped, but unfortunately it really limited to the headroom. Right now I'm standing in the middle of the rig. If I go to either side of it, however, it's got kind of a barrel effect, so it gets a little lower out towards the edges. It's a sacrifice we made. Now, I think primarily when we go camping, we're looking at the fall and we're looking at the summer. Probably won't be doing a whole lot of winter camping, but maybe if we end up going that route, we'll have to rethink the insulation on the floor. Perhaps looking underneath of the vehicle, maybe there's something we could spray on the underside of it that'll make up for the weaker R value that we have right now. But today, we don't have to worry about that. It's hot, guys. Now, something else that needs to be mentioned about this in terms of the effectiveness of the air conditioner is definitely going to be the size of your vehicle. Now, this is an ambulance camper conversion, and the wheeled coach is the manufacturer of the box that I'm standing in right now. The box itself measures 8 feet wide and it is 14 feet long. And like I said, standing from the floor to the ceiling is 73.5 inches tall. But if you look at it from a square footage standpoint, it's 112 square feet. That's 8 feet by 14 feet long. Now, also to mention, this is a tall box ambulance. If you're taking the time to do a conversion on one of these, or if it's something that you're interested in, trust me on this, guys. Look for a taller box. I'm 6'2". Like I said, this from floor to ceiling is 73.5 inches. This is a perfect setup for most people. Now, the shorter box, maybe it would work for some, it just wouldn't work for me. But my advice to you is if you're going to do that, go ahead and just try to find the tall box. So there you have it, folks. You know what kind of air conditioner I've got, you know the insulation situation, and you know the size of the rig. But before we go any further here, and we'll be getting started soon, but before we go any further, I just want to give you kind of a quick tour of the Velit installation the way that we have it. So as you'll see on the kitchen cabinet here, there's 2 vents that we've got. There's one here, and then one on the face of the cabinet itself. You can look underneath of it and see the ductwork that's going from underneath of the bed up to the vents, and then there's another one over here. That's it. There's only 2 vents in here. Initially, I was a little concerned about that, but it is a camper air conditioner, so what do you do? Now, as far as the Velit's location, it's called the under bench unit, but in our case, it's under the bed. And I will show you that here real quick, too. There you have it. It sits on the passenger side wheel well. And not much to say, but that's pretty much it. Right here you can see the DC power lines that go over across and over to our battery bank. And here's another view, and this is from the back of the rig looking over there towards the wheelhouse. And as you can see, there it is. Well, it's time to start the test, but I just want to explain how I'm going to end up doing this test, okay? Now, we're going to be checking the temperatures once every hour, and what I've got are 2 digital thermometers, one's inside and one's outside. We're also going to be checking the humidity level accordingly as well. Now, it's not all going to be digital. I'm not just going to be looking at an app to see what it is inside the rig, and then, of course, relate it to the outside of the rig. I'm going to be opening and closing the door several times through the course of the test just to simulate reality, right? Especially if you're living the dog life. Or if you're not living the dog life, maybe you've got kids or grandkids. Fact of the matter is that door is open and closed a lot. I just want it to be as realistic as possible. We want a true representation of what this is really going to be like. I saw a couple of review videos where these van life folks, and they're in sunny California on an 80-degree day and they're testing their air conditioners. And guys, right now it's 90 degrees in this rig as I'm sitting here right now. Those are great review videos. Maybe if you're in that kind of climate, we're not. It's a whole lot hotter here. There you go, folks. You could hear the high noon sirens, and that means it's time to get this test started. But one thing to mention, and a very important thing to mention, is that the reason we purchased this to begin with was because we were able to mount it inside the rig so we could save the roof space for more important things like what we needed with our fan and also the solar panels that will be used. Now, we're going to be checking the temperatures once every hour, and what I've got are 2 digital thermometers, one's inside and one's outside. This is going to be a 6-hour test. We're going to be testing the temperature here in just a minute, and then once every hour on the hour, we're going to be testing this. And as you just heard, those sirens that went off, that means it's high noon. It's a couple minutes after here at this point, but we're going to go ahead and test it now. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3, and so on, of course, until we get to 6. Okay. This little guy is the thermometer that I purchased, and I've got 2 of these that are identical, and I've got one sitting on the outside rear bumper right now, and then of course this one here. Top number, temperature, bottom where it says 55, that's the humidity level. Okay, let's go ahead and turn this thing on. All right, looks like regular AC mode. We're gonna set it down. Let's just set it down to 60. You know what, let's just go as low as we can. Let's see what it'll do. There we go. It's starting to go cool off just a little bit. Oh, gosh, guys, I tell you what, at 90 degrees in here, feels like you're in a sauna with the humidity level being at the 56 that it is. Actually, I think it just went literally from 55 to 56 right there in front of me. Okay, the test has officially started, and we're going to revisit this here in 1 hour. Also, something to note on my cool little Renogy battery monitor, is looking and seeing what the stats are here too. We're starting off with 100% charge on the batteries. Right now it's currently drawing 500 well, a little over 500 watts of power at 19.3 amps. Now I suspect if we get to the point it's not having to work harder, we're going to see those numbers drop. And the only other thing I've got running, of course, are these little LED lights on the ceiling. That's the only two things going on in here right now. That's just kind of a baseline of where we're at there. And just to show you that temperature gauge I've got sitting back here on the bumper, we're showing 91 degrees outside and 54% humidity, just for reference. Okay, so now we've got this party started. The test has begun, and I've got about an hour to kill. Now, I've got no shortage of things to do when it comes to the ambulance build itself, but knowing today was going to be a miserably perfect example of Oklahoma heat, I really wanted to go ahead and get this test done here today to be able to share out to you, anybody that's in the market for one of these Velits, or maybe even any 12 volt or 24 volt air conditioner to begin with, or just any at all, right? But we're gonna let you know what we find out later today, and in the meantime, I've got about an hour to kill. So I got yard work to do. I could clean the shop. I don't know. I certainly need to clean the shop, so maybe that's where I'll get started. But guys, I'll see you in an hour and we'll see where that thing's sitting at. Okay guys, we're at the end of hour number 1 right now. And just as a quick reminder, the interior temperature to begin with was 90 degrees with a humidity level of 55. And outside it was 90 degrees with a humidity level of 53. So let's go in at the end of hour number 1, take a look and see what we've got. Here we go. Okay, I haven't looked at the temperature yet, but I can feel a substantial difference. So here's what we've got. We are currently at 86 with a humidity level of 42. Not too bad, not too bad. We've lost about 4 degrees in temperature within the first 1 hour, starting off with a hot camper. Moving over here to the Renogy, looks like that compressor on the AC unit's really pumping. We're at 592 watts. Pulling about 22 amps of power, and battery bank is still holding pretty strong. Okay, so now we've taken a look at what it's looking like on the inside. Let's take a look and see what the temperature outside is reading. Outdoor temperature in the entrance of my shop right now is sitting at 95 with humidity of approximately 48. That, my friends, is end of hour number 1. Okay, y'all, we are at the end of hour number 2, and the outside temperature is at 97 degrees outside, with a humidity level of 44%. But what does the inside look like? All right, well, this is a little disappointing. We are still at 86 degrees with humidity of 42. And this is at the end of hour number 2. Like I said, we really haven't made any traction. Okie doke. Going over here and taking a look at the battery monitor, we're still pushing 600 watts of power, 22.7 amps. Let's try something different. The Velit has got a turbo mode, which I understand draws a little bit more power. But let's see what happens if we run it for the next hour on turbo mode. Okay, so looking at the gauge there, you've got a little kind of a strongman icon at the upper right hand corner. That is supposed to indicate that it is in turbo mode. And also looking at this, it also says it is in turbo mode as well. Let's let it run for an hour, see if there's anything to turbo mode. And I'm thinking there's something to it. Just looking at that battery monitor, we jumped up to about almost 700 watts of power draw. So it's oh wow, look at the amperage draw. It definitely went up as well. I guess we're gonna see. Well, okay folks, we are at the end of hour number 3 running the machine on turbo mode, and as you can see, it is 98 degrees outside, 39% humidity. 39 seems awfully low compared to how it feels out here. Looks like it just jumped up to 40. Well, let's see what it looks like in the rig. Okay, looks like even at turbo mode, we're still running 86 degrees out here. The humidity level has dropped down to 39% in the machine out here, but yeah, just a little disappointing in terms of the temperature. I was kind of hoping for a little better than that. Let's take a look at the Renogy and see what kind of power this thing's drawing. Okay, looks like we're still pulling about 720 watts of power, 27.7 amps of amperage. And the bank is starting to come down. We have, in 3 hours, we've used about 15% of our battery bank, and it does not look like we are really getting much of a return on investment from that turbo mode. At least not in terms of the temperature, maybe just a little bit in terms of the humidity level though. Seeing that turbo mode didn't really do much for us short of burn a little bit more energy, I'm going to go ahead and revert back to regular AC mode. One thing to note, however, is the temperature, although it is holding strong at 86 in the ambo here, is that the temperature has been going up outside. We started off at 95 on hour 1, then 97, and now it's 98 out there. So it's holding solid, but this just might be what we get out of this. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and revert back over to regular AC mode, and we'll revisit this in 1 more hour. Something else we might do just to play with the idea here is to go ahead and get a piece of foam and cover that window up and just see if that maybe does anything for us at all. I don't know if that'll help, but we'll see. And I had to hop out of the rig in order to go cut that piece of foam. And when I did, just to note, it did go up to 87, but that also kind of happened at the same time that I took turbo mode off, so not really for sure if it was turbo or me getting in and out. Odds are it's probably me getting in and out. 97 degrees is the current temperature here at the end of hour number 4. 40% humidity. Let's go check out the rig and see what we're looking like inside. Okay, well, man, yeah, this is definitely disappointing. We are losing traction here. Humidity's down a little bit from when we left the last time, but the temperature is up. Matter of fact, it's almost up 2 degrees. Oddly enough, it really doesn't just feel terrible in here, at least when you're standing in front of the moving air anyway. And but this is the reality of it. This is kind of what I remember RV air conditioning being like. It certainly wasn't nice and cool and 70 degrees outside, and unfortunately it does not look like this air conditioner unit's going to be able to produce that either. But it doesn't feel terrible in here. I just don't really honestly know if I'd trust keeping dogs out here throughout the heat of the day. So I've decided I'm going to go ahead and try turbo mode one more time. What do we have to lose, right? And looking at this, we just clicked up to 88 degrees, 40% humidity, and we just turned on turbo mode. So we're just gonna have to kick back and see if that does anything, and hope for the best. And just as a reminder, this is the end of hour number 4. I'm going to try one more thing just for grins. So what I'm going to do is get a piece of foam board and tape it to the outside of this glass out here. I don't really want to take the time to trim it to match the inside. But if I could at least block off that and the light reflecting in here, just maybe that might do something and at least point us the right direction to see if maybe this thing is going to be salvageable, or if it's just going to be, you know, something that just probably won't work for the doggos. So almost forgot Renogy monitor at end of hour number 4. We're at 68% of bank power, 135 amp hours out of 200. And after kicking it back up to turbo, you can see I'm pushing right about 715 watts right now. Figured I'd just update this since I've been updating it all along. End of the 5th hour now, and outdoor temperature is right at 93. Looks like humidity at 42%, so we've definitely come down quite a bit in terms of the temperature. Let's see what it looks like on the inside. Okay, well, once again, we're right at 86. And that, you know, it did come down a little bit, and I would expect that just because the outdoor temperature has come down too. Looks like turbo mode has put us, you know, right back down to where we were in terms of the humidity. But in terms of the temperature, yeah, 86, and that's probably as good as this thing is going to get. And this isn't even as hot as it gets through a normal summer. Looks like we're drawing about 700 watts right now at 50% on the battery bank, and this is after 5 hours of running. Man, I'm going to go ahead and let it run for one more hour just because we said that's what we were going to do. But I don't have high hopes. I don't believe we'll probably be looking at any temperature fluctuation in here. I mean, possibly. Temperature has gone down about 4 degrees outside, so man, maybe. We'll see. Okay, so where I've had this thermometer is sitting on the top shelf, which is above the window, which is above the kitchenette. And something I just tripped across just a moment ago was I had gone over here to this and just triggered it to see what the temperature it was reading. And as you can see, it's 82. And this is the fan controller for our Max Air fan is what this is. So I thought, man, that's really weird. I'm getting 86 over on one side and 82 on another. So just for grins, I went ahead and I grabbed the other thermometer and I cooled it down under the vent just to drop it down in temperature, and then I set it on the top shelf over here next to the battery monitor. I'm not entirely sure how accurate this is, but it's looking okay. So I just went to 80 and this is at 82. So at least on this front edge of the camper, it looks like we're probably closer to the 82 degree mark. Where I had it sitting up there, well, that's closer to 86, I think. So now it's been over here for a couple of minutes. It looks like we're up to 81, and my Max Air fan controller was showing 82. I'm thinking this really just has to do with the way the air flows through here, and maybe I just had this thing sitting in a hot spot where you can draw your own conclusions from that, but it's looking like we're anywhere between about 81 and 86 depending on where in the camper that I put this thermometer. All right, everybody, we are officially done with the test. This is the end of hour number 5. Outdoor temperature currently at 94 degrees, humidity at 48%. Let's see what we have inside, although I suspect it probably hasn't changed. Okay, well, starting off, let's look at the Max Air remote, and where that is, it's saying 86 degrees. Once again, that's pretty much the highest point in the ambulance, which is going to, of course, be the ceiling. And cold sink, so that's not a big surprise, but it's still saying 86 up there, which is what it's pretty much been reading all day at that position. Moving over here, looks like we are sitting at 81. 45% humidity, and it may have been 81 over here pretty much all day. I don't know. I just moved the thermometer not too long ago, but 81 I guess isn't really all that bad considering how hot it is outside. But I still don't know that that's good enough in order to park the pups out here while we're gone. Just a little bit concerning for that. Going up here to the Renogy, it looks like we got 37% left and about 74 amp hours left on the battery bank. Well, so what does this mean? It means I probably need to test it a little bit more and just see if I could really, if truly, you know, unfortunately at one point it's 86 and at one point it's 81 in terms of location inside the ambulance. That's a big spread, and I would imagine on the floor it's probably a little bit cooler since cold does sink. I think the foam boards across the windows may have made a little bit of a change too. I don't know. I'm still not feeling really good about it when it comes into extreme temperatures. I know in the past when I've been testing it inside the garage, it's come down quite a bit more than that, like into the low 70s when the temperature's in the middle 80s. And we might be looking at about a 15-degree swing in between what's outside and what's inside. And from what I've read about the machine, I guess that's probably pretty well normal. But I'm not going to lie, I was expecting, well, maybe not expecting, but hoping for a little bit better. Well, that's about it, guys. The test is over, and I've got my answers that I was looking for. Now, the first answer that I was kind of wanting to know is it going to work? And unfortunately, yes and no. It does work. It does cool the machine. It just doesn't get to the temperature that I was really hoping that it would. I don't know exactly what that number was. I was just hoping at least the lower 80s, upper 70s. Anyway, I think that would be something I can deal with. But you know what? Middle 80s, that's not going to work. I'm looking for a little bit cooler than that. And granted, this thing was parked out in my driveway, no shade anywhere, but still, that's life, and that's the way it's going to be sometimes when we're parked. How cold did it get? Well, stayed at 86 the entire time the thermometer was up here on the shelf. But what I discovered towards the end is if I had that same thermometer towards the front of the camper, then we were closer to the 81 to 82 degree mark. So I really think we're probably realistically on an average looking at about 82, 83 degrees in here. So whenever it was saying 86 up here, we're probably looking at 81 to 82. Now, is it adequate for this size of camper? Once again, I can't say that it is, guys. It wasn't enough BTUs in order to get the temperature from the heat outside to the temperature that I was wanting it to be in here, which once again was, you know, at least the upper 70s. One of the last questions I had was, what about value? Is it worth the money that I spent for this machine? Once again, I'm a little disappointed in it. I think I probably could have gotten similar results with the Out-Equip Pro, and a friend of mine has actually got one of those. He got it sent to him by the manufacturer to go ahead and review on his YouTube channel. I'll have to get with him and find out kind of where his temperature is actually getting to, because that's one thing I never did ask him for sure about. But the difference is the AutoQuip Pro goes on the ceiling, or actually the roof rather. But the advantage to it is that rather than being like a typical RV air conditioner on your roof, it is very short. I want to say that the specifications say it was somewhere around the 6-inch tall mark. It does have a pretty fair sized footprint, but only 6 inches tall. And that would actually work for our application because I could still park the thing in my shop. So maybe I'll order one of those. Maybe I'll put that on the roof instead of the Velit, or maybe I'll just run them both together when it's really, really hot outside and we just absolutely have to run both together. Obviously, the downside to that is the AutoQuip comes in a 24-volt unit too, and that's going to put a pretty good size load on my battery bank. Even if with solar panels up there, still, that's going to be quite a bit. But if I'm just running it during the heat of the day, you know what, it's an option. So maybe. It would actually be kind of cool to have that unit. It's where I could actually do kind of a side-by-side comparison between the AutoQuip Pro on the roof and then of course the Velit underbench unit itself. Which one's better? I don't know. I got a feeling that the AutoQuip would probably perform about the same when it comes to the performance of the Velit, or at least what I saw of it here today. And for the money, I'm not going to go quoting prices here, but I think the AutoQuip is somewhere around half of what this thing cost itself. So to answer the question on value for the Velit, I'm sorry, I just can't say it's worth the money that I spent. I think I could have spent my money better on the AutoQuip Pro or another unit like it, because at least at that point the air is coming from the top down and it might just feel a little bit better in here. Final thoughts on this, and this is kind of grasping straws here, but there's going to be some stuff in here that's going to change, which will reduce the amount of air that the machine has to cool. And what I'm talking about there are couch cushions, seat back cushions, the queen size mattress that's going to go in here, and even the fact that instead of having open cabinets like what we've got here today, we're going to have cabinet doors on those, and there's also going to be things in the cabinets. Now, like I said, I know that's grasping straws, but that's just kind of something that came to mind, so I thought I'd bring that up. Today was a very extreme temperature outside, but once again, this is Oklahoma, and that's not uncommon. It hits 95, 100 degrees all the time here in this state. It's not uncommon, and that's exactly why I wanted to show you guys what this thing can really do in real life conditions. Now, yeah, I was disappointed, but hey, you know what? Real is real, and this is, I'm glad to be able to at least deliver some honest results to you. Folks, that's all I got for you today. I'll wrap this video up and let you get back to your life. But if you like what you saw here today, check out some of my other videos. I think you'll find those intriguing too. That's all I got. Like and subscribe if you would. It would really help us out a bunch. Happy adventures, guys. I'll see you next time.